for Herod himself had sent men who arrested John, bound him, and put him in prison on account of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because Herod had married her. For John had been telling Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." And Herodias had a grudge against him, and wanted to kill him, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he protected him. When he heard him, he was greatly perplexed, and yet he liked to listen to him. But an opportunity came when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his courtiers and officers and for the leaders of Galilee. When his daughter Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests. And the king said to the girl, "Ask me for whatever you wish, and I will give it." And he solemnly swore to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give you, even half of my kingdom." She went out and said to her mother, "What should I ask for?" She replied, "The head of John the Baptizer." Immediately she rushed back to the king and requested, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter." The king was deeply grieved, yet out of regard for his oaths and for the guests, he did not want to refuse her. Immediately the king sent a soldier of the guard with orders to bring John's head. He went and beheaded him in the prison, brought his head on a platter, and gave it to the girl. Then the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard about it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb.
You know that feeling when you're at a party and someone asks you to do something you really don't want to do, but you feel trapped because everyone's watching? Last week, I watched my teenage nephew promise his girlfriend he'd get a tattoo of her name after she dared him in front of his friends. The regret on his face was immediate, but the peer pressure was real. That's exactly where we find King Herod in today's gospel, caught between his conscience and his ego, with devastating consequences. Let's break this down simply. Herod had married his brother's wife, Herodias, which was against Jewish law. John the Baptist, being the straight-talking prophet he was, kept calling Herod out on this. Now, here's the fascinating part. Herod actually liked listening to John. The gospel tells us he was greatly perplexed but liked to listen to him. It's like having that one friend who always tells you the uncomfortable truth about your life choices. You know they're right, but it stings. I remember my own Herod moment years ago. I was in a job that was slowly compromising my values, but the money was good and the status felt important. A close friend kept gently pointing out how I was changing, becoming someone I didn't recognize. Like Herod, I was torn. Part of me knew my friend was right, but another part resented being called out. The difference was, I eventually listened before it was too late. Herod's downfall came at his birthday party. In a moment of showing off, he made a rash promise to his stepdaughter after her dance performance. When she asked for John's head on a platter, coached by her vengeful mother, Herod was trapped. He didn't want to kill John, but his pride and fear of looking weak in front of his guests won out. One impulsive promise led to the murder of an innocent man. How often do we make decisions based on what others think rather than what we know is right? Maybe it's not as dramatic as Herod's situation, but we all face moments where we choose image over integrity. It might be staying silent when someone makes a racist joke because we don't want to seem difficult, or maybe it's going along with workplace gossip because we want to fit in. These small compromises of our conscience can lead us down a path we never intended to walk. The tragedy is that Herod actually respected John. He protected him and enjoyed their conversations. But when the moment of truth came, he chose his reputation over his relationship with righteousness. He let the opinions of people who probably forgot about the party the next day determine his eternal legacy. Here's the practical application. Start practicing saying "let me think about that" instead of making immediate promises when you're put on the spot. Create space between the pressure and your response. Surround yourself with people who, like John the Baptist, will lovingly challenge you to be better. And remember, the people whose opinions you're worried about probably aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. The beautiful thing about this tragic story is that it shows us the power of standing for truth, even when it costs us everything. John's disciples came and gave him a proper burial. His legacy of courage and integrity lived on, while Herod's moment of weakness haunted him forever. In our daily lives, we can choose to be like John, speaking truth with love, even when it's uncomfortable. We can also learn from Herod's mistake and choose courage over convenience, integrity over image. The world needs more people willing to be the voice of conscience, and fewer people willing to silence it for the sake of keeping the peace.